Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, the NBA offseason. It is here, finally. Congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. Epic NBA Finals series. Of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Oh, my goodness. Doing what superstars do. Incredible stuff from him. But now we get to fully focus on the NBA offseason and the madness that is surely to come. We've been talking about it right here on this channel, calling it the summer of the trade. We think there's going to be a lot of trades going down this year, a ton of things to break down, and today we're going to get into a little chaos. As you might notice, Keith Smith not with me today. He is right now enjoying his vacation, much deserved. Rest up, buddy. Don't worry, he will be back soon. But joining me today, taking his place, is Ron Gutterman from LakersNation.com, and we're going to talk a little chaos. Ron, how you doing?
Doing great. Just hoping to fill the void that Keith is leaving behind for this episode. Just going to do my best.
Well, hey, you got the memo on the blue shirt thing, so already I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we're really in sync. Did not plan this. I want to let everyone know this is totally accidental.
All right, so what we're going to do today is we are going to go through the offseason in the most chaotic fashion possible. It's always fun to root for chaos. So let's talk about the moves that could happen that would result in the most chaos across the landscape of the NBA now, within the realm of reality. So you're not going to see here Damian Lillard traded for a future second round pick or something like that. No, these are moves that could happen and would cause the most destructive chaos possible. So let's dive into it. The first thing, and maybe the most obvious one, Kawhi Leonard says goodbye to the Clippers. Yes, we're hearing all the rumors that he's probably going to stay, but that's not quite as chaotic as it would be if he decided to leave. There are any number of teams that would move heaven and earth to get him if Kawhi Leonard makes it known that he would like to leave the Clippers in free agency. Particularly the Miami Heat could be in the running for him, the Mavs and the New York Knicks, all teams that would like to pursue Kawhi Leonard. Can you imagine, Ron? Maybe this is showing our Lakers bias here, starting with Kawhi leaves the Clippers, but could you imagine the reaction around the NBA if Kawhi Leonard does walk away?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's chaotic and it's funny. And look, we know it's probably not going to happen, but those are three teams that have something legitimate to offer Kawhi, especially if he's going to be out for a year anyway. I think a team like the Mavericks can say, hey, look, we're in better shape to contend 2 years from now than the Clippers are when you come back. So that's something that's kind of interesting to me. I also think it'd be very funny because that means that the Clippers actually did trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and like 7 picks for just Paul George, not for both of them like we've been told for 2 years.
Oh, what about Danilo Gallinari? We can't leave him out, right?
Sorry. Forgot he was a part of that incredible deal.
No disrespect to Gallo, but you know what? When you look at this situation here, you're right. Look, Kawhi dealing with a knee injury. Maybe he's out part of next season, maybe the whole season. We don't know. And if you're the Mavs in particular with Luka, you could make a case that, hey, Kawhi, when you come back, let Luka do the heavy lifting. Everything's going to be just fine. Besides, we know that even though he's in his hometown of LA, he's not really a hometown player when you're playing for the for the Clippers instead of the Lakers. So Kawhi Leonard potentially leaving the Clippers, that would certainly be chaos.
Yeah, that's definitely, and we can move to the next one here, also involving the New York Knicks. We could talk about Colin Sexton. He is available on the trade block for absolutely no reason. But him going to New York would be chaos. And it's not because Colin Sexton changes the landscape of the NBA playoff picture and makes the Knicks a title contender. That's not why. It's because the Knicks are one of the very few teams with cap space and a need for a point guard. This year's free agent class is filled with point guards. So if the Knicks were to trade for one instead of signing one, that would mean one less landing spot and still 7 very good free agent point guards with nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's just it, right? And look, I understand why the Cavs would want to move on from Colin Sexton at this point, get whatever value they can out of him, maybe move Kevin Love in the deal if they believe they're getting their guard of the future or one of their guards of the future in the draft this year. And if they say, look, we're probably not going to pay Colin Sexton after his deal runs out after this season, okay, I get that. It's a little bit unusual for a team to move a guy this young already, but you know what? It's worked in the past. The Lakers did it with D'Angelo Russell. But Colin Sexton to the Knicks, I would want to see the reaction from every free agent point guard out there. Like they would have to all just be so displeased. Like it would not be a pleasant moment for them when that Woj bomb hit. Because, like you said, there's not that many landing spots for the free agent point guards that are out there. There's a lot of them that deserve to get paid. And if suddenly one of those landing spots is gone and there's still the same number of free agent point guards on the market, that's going to be chaos. That means these guys are going to be scrambling, trying to find spots. And I think you're going to see free agent point guards accept deals pretty quickly just to grab something before the music stops and the landing spots run out. So Colin Sexton to the Knicks absolutely would bring probably more chaos to this particular point guard market than anything else that could happen out there. But speaking of point guards, Damian Lillard supposedly is not quite requested a trade yet from the Portland Trail Blazers, but a Damian Lillard to the 76ers for Ben Simmons swap would get the NBA buzzing, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense for both clubs. If the Blazers, you're getting a younger player in Ben Simmons, you're getting a guy to move forward with, you're also doing Damian Lillard a solid. You're giving him to a team that can contend for a championship. I think Lillard is a perfect complement to Joel Embiid. I do think that the 76ers would have to give stuff up along with Ben Simmons in order to get Damian Lillard in that kind of a package, but that kind of a deal going down might change, particularly the Eastern Conference and the way teams are behaving there, because the 76ers, I think, would be looked at as a even bigger threat if they get Damian Lillard and put him together with Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and I imagine, and this is obviously not heavily rumored or anything. There's no sources on this. I have to believe the framework of that deal looks around Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, and 2 first-round picks. Something like that. I think that's extremely fair value for both sides. Both teams improve, not in the sense that, the Blazers don't improve on the court, but they improve as where they are as a franchise. It shows that they are younger, they're ready, and they can still play good basketball. Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic. It's an interesting core. So I think that's a really good deal for both sides, and it would absolutely be chaos because it would shake up the entire playoff picture in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets would still feel pretty good, I'm sure, about their chances, but every other team in the East would be going, okay, we need to take the 76ers even more seriously now, and maybe we need to make some moves in order to keep up with what they just did. I do wonder if they can get away with one first, because Maxey looked pretty good this year. Maybe they can get it done with one first, Maxey and Ben Simmons. Maybe that works out. Of course, salary-wise, you've got to make sure that you're lining things up there, but it's an interesting idea. The next one, Ron, hit us with it because it's our team.
Yeah, so the next one is Chris Paul most likely opting into the final year of his deal and then getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. The true nightmare scenario for a lot of people, because let me tell you, I think the coalition of people who hate LeBron James, hate the Lakers, and hate Chris Paul is a really big circle. And it's a really big group of people, and I think that would be ultimate chaos because it would, really change the playoff picture, but also it would probably be one of the most hated teams in recent NBA history.
As though it wasn't already. That Venn diagram is just a circle, right? When you're comparing all of the hatred coming out of guys who dislike Chris Paul, the Lakers, and LeBron James. So that certainly lines up. But look, I mean, for the Phoenix Suns to finally get back not just to the playoffs, but to get to the NBA Finals, and Chris Paul is the guy who helps get you there, and then he walks to the Lakers. Now, the Lakers would have to package some pieces. I could actually see the Suns doing just fine coming out of this. Chris Paul is getting older. There's no denying that. And then you pick up some pieces. Maybe it's a signed and traded Dennis Schroeder. Maybe it's you could throw in Kyle Kuzma. Maybe Talen Horton-Tucker has to be part of the picture there. The 22nd pick could be like the Suns could get a solid return. But in terms of the Western Conference, this can certainly change things and mix things up. I don't think, and again, all credit in the world to the Suns for getting to the NBA Finals. I don't think that they can be heading into this offseason saying, you know what, just run it back. We're good. Run it back. We're fine as is. No, I think if they're being realistic, they're looking at things and saying, well, we probably don't get there if it wasn't for injuries. And really, the Bucks might be able to say the same thing based on what happened with the Nets. And again, there is no asterisk We take nothing away from the Bucks, take nothing away from the Suns. They played the teams that were in front of them. But when they're building for next season, I think they have to be realistic about their chances of repeating and getting back to the finals. And for the Suns, I think there's moves that need to be made. And it's possible that trading in this scenario, as much as it would hurt them, but trading an aging Chris Paul to the Lakers might actually help them out in the long run.
Yeah, and it's a Chris Paul who did not perform well in the finals, at least in the final few games. He was great in games 1 and 2. But it's a Chris Paul who struggled once again for what feels like the 14th year in a row. Chris Paul struggled when the team needed him most in the playoffs. And so, the Suns could very easily say, hey, look, we don't get here again if we do this the exact same way, if we run it back. Maybe trading Chris Paul makes the most sense, and the Lakers would absolutely be at the front of the line for the suitors.
Yeah, and I think that Chris Paul would probably ask the Suns to send him to the Lakers if that option is out there. And by the way, just a little bit of education here. The reason why Ron said having him opt in is because otherwise, if he opts out, or if the Suns do, say, a sign and trade to the Lakers, that's a big, big difference. If he opts out and does the sign and trade to the Lakers would then be hard capped, because if you accept a player via sign and trade, then you would trigger that hard cap, and that would put the Lakers in a very difficult position in terms of filling out the rest of their roster. So it would be more beneficial from the Lakers side of things and from Chris Paul's side, if he wants to contend, to not trigger that hard cap by opting into the $44.7-ish million, I believe he has left on his contract, and then working out some sort of a trade there. All right, the draft. Look, all kinds of madness can happen on draft day. As much as Woj does a great job spoiling every single pick and uses all kinds of different ways to describe it, and Shams gets in on the mix too, this team is locked in on picking this guy, because they can't just say, oh, they're picking this guy anymore. But absolute chaos in the draft. Detroit trading number 1. Yeah, that would certainly shake things up. I don't think it changes who gets picked. Cade Cunningham, he's going number 1 overall. Everybody knows this. But Detroit moving off of that pick would be fascinating. They are listening, which they absolutely should be. But Pistons fans, the reaction we've gotten anytime we've suggested that the Pistons are even listening to trade offers has been, well, Pistons fans have not been thrilled with that idea. So Pistons fans would be very upset if the Pistons were to move off of it. I mean, look, there's a number of teams that would say, hey, here's our number 1 this year, plus a future first. You can get kind of the Trae Young deal, right? Where you get a young guy who's pretty talented. Like if you're doing a deal with the Houston Rockets, say, you can maybe get 2 and a future first. If you believe there's not that big of a gap between Cade Cunningham and, say, Jalen Green, maybe it's something you really do consider. But right now, the Pistons fan base is very excited about having that number 1 pick, and them trading it. Oh, that would get people buzzing on draft day.
Yeah, and look, when Zion Williamson was the projected number 1 pick, no one was talking about New Orleans trading away that selection. When there is a surefire number 1 prospect, when it was, if it's Zion Williamson, if it's any one of those guys in past years, you don't hear that stuff. The reason we're hearing it now is because as great as Cade Cunningham is, there isn't the instant superstar consensus that there was with Zion Williamson and some former number 1 picks. So that's kind of the reason you're getting even some rumblings about it. I don't think they'll trade it. I don't think Cade Cunningham is going anywhere but Detroit. But Cade Cunningham is not Zion Williamson, and so that's the reason that we're kind of hearing maybe they'll take some value for it.
I mean, they've got to at least consider it, right? Doesn't hurt to listen in a situation like that. I don't think, anyway. And by the way, that would be as chaotic as when the Seattle Seahawks traded away Bo Callahan, right? To first the Browns, and then traded back into the draft in order to get him when Vontae Mack went number 1 overall, because Vontae Mack, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a thrilling draft night. Really beautiful stuff from, what was the name of the GM? I was going to say, he really worked the entire NFL that night.
Sonny Weaver Jr.
Sonny Weaver Jr. How could I forget?
Right. That's right. Got to go with the Browns on that one. They had quite a night. Ray Jennings coming back to town as well. That was a heck of a draft night. If you don't know what we're talking about, we are once again referencing the movie Draft Day. Keith and I were talking about it the other day, and I have started watching a bit more of it once again. It's a fun movie. Not a great movie, but a fun movie.
Oh,
All right,
no.
next up.
All right, so this one is a little crazy. This is probably our most chaotic, just because of how little it's really been rumored. But the Washington Wizards blow it up. They move Bradley Beal, and in our chaotic scenario, Bradley Beal is moved to the Boston Celtics for some variation of Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, something along those lines. And
Whatever
in the
it takes to
same
make the
vein,
salaries work there. Yeah.
Russell Westbrook would then be dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers, the Celtics' rival. So that's ultimate chaos, I think. Of everything we're saying here, that's kind of ultimate chaos.
And I think this actually could happen. Now, maybe not this offseason. I think this actually could happen though, right? Like Bradley Beal and Jason Tatum have this friendship. They're playing together with Team USA right now. If Beal wants to go anywhere, like the Celtics, kind of makes sense as a landing spot. They've got assets to go get him. I know Celtics fans will push back and say, no, we don't want to trade Jaylen Brown, but sometimes you have to give in order to get something. So Beal, like the two big stars right now on the Wizards, being split and having them one go to the Celtics and one go to the Lakers, I think that's high drama in and of itself. And then the Lakers bringing Russell Westbrook back to LA and bringing in a Russell Westbrook who can't shoot. He can't shoot threes, and defenses will ignore him. And the Lakers just saying, we don't care about advanced analytics. We're just getting talent, and we're going to roll the ball out there on the floor and see what we can do. That could be absolute case. That could be torture for us, Ron. Or the Lakers turn into this crazy, monstrous, fast-breaking team that nobody can stop in transition, with Russell Westbrook running with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and all these other players. You never know what the outcome would be, but it would certainly be something that would bring even more of a buzz to these classic rivals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting claustrophobia just thinking of the spacing on a Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis team. But yeah, if we're talking ultimate chaos, the Wizards blowing it up, if they were to go that route, the Celtics and the Lakers are probably the two most realistic landing spots for those two players. And Lakers fans will say, why don't we just get Beal? No. The Lakers trade package for Russell Westbrook is not good enough for Bradley Beal, which is why they would settle for Russell Westbrook. That's why.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If they could get Bradley Beal, they would. But like, okay. So I saw this response online. So the rumored trade for the Lakers is a signed and traded Dennis Schroeder, which I don't even agree that he would want to go to the Washington Wizards, but let's suspend disbelief here. Kyle Kuzma, a signed and traded Taylor Horton-Tucker, and all of those things going to Washington in exchange for Russell Westbrook. And the response that I've seen from neutral NBA fans has been, oh my gosh, Washington needs to take that and run. Like, that tells you where Russell Westbrook's value is right now. That package is certainly not good enough, though, to get you Bradley Beal, right? Then you're talking about the Celtics assets. You could say Jaylen Brown is a young potential star player, right? Already all-star, maybe superstar player in the mix. Then you can get like a Marcus Smart. Maybe you can get some picks involved there. Like, there's just a better package going out in order to get Bradley Beal. And that's why Bradley Beal goes to the Celtics and Russell Westbrook goes to the Lakers. And then, oh my gosh, as if there wasn't enough drama in LA already, that would be total chaos.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, it shows you how highly Taylor Horton-Tucker is valued by non-Lakers fans, because Kyle Kuzma and Dennis Schroeder are not valuable assets, and they're still saying Wizards should take this one. This is the deal. And that's because of Taylor Horton-Tucker and because Russell Westbrook makes $45 million per year.
Yeah, I think it's more about how little they value Russell Westbrook as opposed to Taylor Horton-Tucker. I still get a lot of non-Lakers fans who aren't super high on Taylor Horton-Tucker, but I do think it tells us about what they think about Russell Westbrook. The next thing, though, Andre Drummond. Some team convincing themselves once again that Andre Drummond is a star-level center or all-star level center and giving him upwards of $10 million per season. I could see it happening. I could see some teams, I don't know, Charlotte Hornets looking at you guys. They need a center that just says, you know what, Drummond is still good. We're going to go for it, and we're going to be the team that pays him. I like Andre Drummond. I think he's better than a lot of people think he is. I think he gets a little bit too much flack. I think Russell Westbrook might be the same way, right? Not saying he's good, but I think people overrate or underrate how good the player actually is, right? Overrate how bad the player is. Because it's almost like a funny thing to do, right? To exaggerate how bad the player is. Andre Drummond, I don't think he's a veteran minimum type player, but I think some team will really hurt themselves by paying Andre Drummond too much money, or even worse, for too many years. 1 year deal doesn't matter. I don't care what he gets paid for 1 year. That's fine. A 1 year deal is not going to hurt you long term. But somebody's going to talk themselves into multiple years, and they're probably going to come to regret that.
Yeah, and when we say Andre Drummond getting 10 million is chaos, it's not because it actually affects anything about the NBA. It's just going to be a day of really great online jokes. I liken it to the day that the Charlotte Hornets gave Gordon Hayward a 4-year, $120 million contract last offseason. I liken it to that, where it's just going to be like everyone on planet Earth knows that this is a bad deal, and yet you still went ahead and did it.
But then Gordon Hayward wasn't that bad last season. Like, I think he, in some ways, lived up to the contract. Like, he wasn't. It's painful to say it, but the Timofey Mozgov deal, like that, the 4 years, $64 million, that may be the direct comparison. If somebody does throw big money at Andre Drummond, and again, I like Andre Drummond. I think he's better than like a veteran minimum guy. But I think if you're the team that's paying him any kind of big money, it could be big trouble. And like you said, the reaction online, I think, is going to be absolutely crazy. All right, last one.
Yep, final one here. This involves changing the landscape of the Western Conference. Oof. It's the Warriors trading a package of the number 7 overall pick in this year's draft, the number 14 overall pick, and their number 2 overall pick from last year, James Wiseman, packaging it all together and getting an all-star level player. The name that's been floated around the most, of course, is Toronto Raptors all-star Pascal Siakam.
This is, I think, out of everything that's on our list here, this might be the most likely to actually happen. That or Colin Sexton. I think those two things, Colin Sexton to the Knicks or this move right here, might be the most likely to really happen. And that the ripple effects through the Western Conference would be insane, because there are so many. The reason why we call it the summer of the trade right now, why we think that's what it's going to be, is because there's so many teams right now that can talk themselves in to being one piece away. Hey, we are one move away from contending. There's so many teams right now that are in that spot. If the Warriors go and make this kind of move, and next thing you know, you've got an all-star level player, whether it's Pascal Siakam or somebody else, and you've got Curry, maybe you have to put Andrew Wiggins into the deal, maybe you don't. You've got Klay Thompson, you've got Draymond, and now you put another all-star caliber player with them, the Warriors could vault right back up to the top of the NBA. If you take last year's team and you re-add Klay Thompson to it, a healthy Klay Thompson, hopefully, please be healthy Klay, and an all-star caliber player, they could become, once again, the number 1 team in the West. And every other team that sees themselves as a contender in the West, which is a lot of teams, would be looking around going, oh my gosh, we have to do something in order to keep up the pace. And I think that this could set off a flurry of moves with teams trying to play catch up.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Jazz, the Mavericks, the Warriors, the Suns, I named almost a whole playoff bracket.
Yep.
They all believe that and you could probably throw the Memphis Grizzlies in there too. They all believe that they are they're one piece away. And the Lakers probably believe that piece is health. The Clippers also probably believe that.
Sure.
But even still, they all think, hey, one thing goes our way this season, we're the NBA champions. And that can lead to chaos just by itself when you have 8 teams who legitimately feel their championship quality.
Yeah, 100%. This would, again, there would be a ripple effect, a domino effect, really, where a lot of other teams would be set into motion by something like this happening. Same thing in the Eastern Conference. Like if the 76ers get their hands on Damian Lillard, say the Blazers finally decide, okay, yeah, we're just going to trade him, and they get Lillard, it would set off a bit of an arms race, particularly in the East. The Warriors successfully moving, which they're rumored to do, 7-14 and James Wiseman and getting win now help, I think it would start an arms race in the Western Conference, and we would see other teams make counter moves, other teams push the chips in and really, really go for it. Now, I think teams are going to push their chips in anyway, but this would light a fire under the entire Western Conference, and every team that you mentioned would be going out there trying to make moves to counter what the Warriors just did. And I think it's interesting, Ron, that in your list, before you said Grizzlies, last on your list was the Phoenix Suns, the team that was just in the finals. And if that doesn't show the depth of the Western Conference right now, and kind of perhaps a little bit the fluky nature of the Suns getting there, nothing does. Like, those are the teams that we think of first as contending teams, and then you kind of throw in the Suns, and they were the team that just represented the West in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Phoenix Suns, obviously depends on everything that happens. But if the teams look similar to the way they look now, and the NBA just runs it back, fully healthy, everyone the whole year, it'd be difficult to talk me into the Suns being better than like a 4 seed. And they were just in the finals. They were 2 wins away. They were up 2-0 in an NBA Finals, and I'm just not sure they have that in them again.
And that's it. It's wide open, and that's why the Warriors making a big move like that would ignite everything. It would be bonkers. And that, my friends, that is the chaos that we are all so excited about for this offseason. It's going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Again, the offseason is just getting started, so make sure you're subscribed. Turn on notifications as well so you get notified every time we have a new video coming out. Stay in the know. We're going to be breaking things down every single day, especially once the signings actually happen. Every night, we're going to be breaking down all the transactions around the NBA. Tons of stuff coming up here. So make sure, again, you are subscribed right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. And don't forget to like this video as well. Till next time, everybody, stay safe and see ya.